This is Retro Rambling, an audio podcast discussion about all things retro, with your host, Cyrus Martin.
Well, hey everybody, it is me, Cyrus. Welcome back for another episode of Retro Rambling. And today I am joined by my good friend, Luke. How you doing, Luke?
Doing great. How you doing, Cyrus?
I'm doing great. If you guys don't know, Luke has a pretty awesome channel on YouTube that is growing. It's a growing channel. It is developing. It is evolving. It is not yet reached its final form, but it is on its way. And you recently passed a pretty big milestone, didn't you?
Yeah, I just recently, I think it was last week, hit 500 subscribers. And I never like to celebrate a benchmark like that or a milestone until I get like comfortably above it, because you know yourself with YouTube, people tend to drop off. So I waited till I got like around 510 and finally celebrated.
Enjoy yourself. 500
Yes.
is pretty good, dude, and well earned. Like if you guys don't know, Luke covers all kinds of different gaming things, like different consoles, even like some pretty cool little devices that do emulation. I've seen a lot of great stuff on your channel, Luke. Like, if you could sort of summarize what it is you do on YouTube for the people that might not be familiar with you.
Well, for people not familiar with YouTube, what I do is I take and sit in front of my computer in front of a camera and make videos. And then I
Oh,
upload these and people watch them.
that what happens? Is that how this works? Damn it.
That's it. That's what happens.
All right. I mean, but
Not
like,
really, though.
yeah, go ahead.
No, really, like when I first started the channel, honestly, like I wasn't really sure what direction I wanted to go with it. Like I was kind of debating on doing like movies and action figures and games, and it was just too broad of a direction to go, really. So I had to kind of focus that in. And the one thing I loved the most was games. Um, so, I've kind of focused between modern and retro. Sometimes I tend to get caught up in doing a lot more retro than modern. It's very easy to do.
It
Uh,
is.
and if
Yes.
you are retro gamers, you know what I'm talking about. Once you get in the retro, it's hard to get out of the retro. Uh, but yeah, and I've kind of went back and forth. Like I think kind of much like you, Cyrus. Like I'll get on one console and I'll do that one console for quite a while. I've done a lot of Wii U stuff here as of late. Um, got a Sega Saturn last year. I was very, very blessed to get that from a good friend. Um, so I've now been getting into doing some Sega Saturn stuff. Saturdays, I'm going to be putting a new video out every Saturday. That's going to be a Sega Saturn video, calling those Sega Saturn days. Um, so just doing a little bit of that, doing some gaming with my daughter. That's one of to me, my favorite thing that I do, because it's memories that she and I are getting to share and experiences. With games that she's never experienced. So I'm really enjoying that.
I gotta tell you, like, my daughter's a lot older than your daughter, obviously, but that experience is something that I've been having lately as well. And you're absolutely right, man. I mean, there's very little else that I enjoy more in my life than just spending time hanging out with my daughter and being able to share gaming, and since your daughter's so young, I mean, you're able to, experience a lot of those, Nintendo games, those early, like family friendly type games, and sort of form her opinion of what gaming is. So that's got to be really rewarding.
Yeah, it is. And, we were trying to do a series with her learning retro games. We did a couple episodes and it wasn't really working out very well. She
Mm.
was kind of struggling with some of the earlier Nintendo games. Um, with her, she wants to rush everything. She's so used to playing games like Fortnite and that sort of thing. So trying to get her in the mentality of learning patterns, keeping her distance and just kind of watching and learning those patterns was a bit of a challenge. Um, so we've kind of been doing a lot more of the Kirby stuff, which has been a little bit easier, I think, for her. I
Oh
think
yeah.
once she masters a lot of that, maybe we can get back into more of the Mario stuff. We tried Mario 2. That was just a disaster.
Well, those older games are so much harder. Like we grew up with that kind of stuff, but
Yeah.
the younger generations, they don't know. They don't games have evolved to the point to where they kind of hold your hand a little bit as you're playing them. And back in the day, it was like sink or swim.
Oh, definitely. Like today, we started Kirby's Dream Land for Game Boy. And I've not played that since I had my original Game Boy. So this has been a long time since I've played that game.
Wow.
So we got up, we filmed a video, we did about half the game. So we're on, I think, the third stage. I believe there's 5 stages. Um, we were both being kind of careless, just being honest. And then I looked online. I was like, I wonder how many continues you get if you get continues. And I was like, oh my God, this game does not offer continues at all. So if we die, it is over with.
You,
So I told her, we got to be careless. We got to be more careful.
you said you're playing the Game Boy. How are you playing that one?
We're playing it through the Switch Online service.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like, what do you think of that service? What do you think of what they're offering, like through that service? And is that something that appeals to you? Do you think more maybe because you have a family to share that with?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I really think it's a great way, for kids and for families to experience those games because we just do like the basic package only. Like, we don't have the expanded to where we get the
Mm,
N64 and Sega. Um, with her, she played a lot of Animal Crossing and Splatoon too, and this is why we got that to begin with. Not for me because I really didn't play anything online, um, but she played a lot of Splatoon 2 online and Animal Crossing with her grandmother. Like that's their big connection is Animal Crossing. They play that together every night. So we just got the basic service, so we just have the NES, the Super Nintendo, and the Game Boy. But I think it's fantastic. I know a lot of people, they have a lot of beefs with it because they want to be able to buy the games or whatever. But for the price we pay, we have the family shared plan. I think it's like $35 for a year.
mm.
So to be able to go on there and play those NES, Super Nintendo, and Game Boy games, just those alone, and her be able to play online for that price for an entire year, I think it's fantastic. Much cheaper than buying the games. I know you don't own them, you're never going to own them,
Yeah.
but most guys are like me and you, Cyrus. They already have the games anyway,
Well,
or if
yeah.
not,
I mean, there's all
they
kinds of different gamers, and different people find things of value for different reasons. For sure. For sure.
yeah. And that's the thing, like most people that I see in here complaining about that service and not being able to buy those games are ones like us who probably already have them or can emulate them
I
or do
mean,
emulate
you could just
them.
say me specifically. Because I have complained about that a couple of times, but that again. That's what I'm saying though. Like, there's different. That service is intended for families like you, and for guys like me, it's a nice thing to have and fun to play around with. But yeah, I'm gonna complain because I would rather buy the games and own them. I don't. I think about like 10 years down the road. I think about that kind of thing because maybe I shouldn't think that far ahead. I'm getting pretty old, but that's kind. That we just have different needs and different ideas about what value is for gaming, and
Yeah,
especially for like a family. I mean, those experiences are great right now, and it's not really. I mean, there's plenty of other ways you can own those games for yourself later, but for the experience of sharing it with your family, I think that's a really good option.
yeah. And I think for me, like the one reason I don't really care if I could buy them or not on there is, I've bought these games so many times,
Oh
through
yeah.
like Game Boy Advance because they released a lot of those Mario Brothers, the original Mario collections. Um, I have Super Mario All Stars on my Wii. I have that All Stars collection they did.
Hmm.
I've bought so many of these games through the eShops on my Wii, on my Wii U. So I already have them bought in so many locations. So like that's why that has never bothered me. Like that aspect of buying them again has never bothered me.
Yeah.
Nintendo tends to do that. They release things over and over again, and we buy them over and over again.
Well, let me ask you, since you're talking about this, you're talking about Nintendo. Would you consider, I don't know how you would define yourself as a gamer. We all have different preferences and favorites and things like that. Are you more of a Nintendo gamer than anything, or do you sort of draw from the different companies and the different offerings? Where do you see yourself as far as your preferences are concerned?
See, that's one thing. A lot of people talk about, fanboys in our gaming world, gaming community. You hear fanboys a lot, and I've never been a fanboy of anything. Like I've always, back in the day, loved Sega Genesis. I loved Super Nintendo. Um, I've always loved Nintendo, PlayStation, Microsoft. I mean, I have all of the current consoles,
Yeah.
and I have a love for all of them equally. Um,
Well,
I don't.
let me put you on the spot. Let me just ask you this. If you had to pick three, what are your three favorite consoles? Like just off the top of your head.
Of all time.
Yeah.
Um, so number one favorite will be Nintendo 64.
Okay.
Uh, and that's just for so many reasons, a lot of memories and stuff shared with that console with my brothers. So that one is always going to be my favorite console of all time. Um, Second would be my Wii U,
Right.
and that that's from a place of memories and special moments shared with my daughter. That was her first
Mm.
console.
Well, I mean, it's hard to argue with that. I mean, yeah, absolutely.
And then my third favorite console, I would say, would be Dreamcast.
Oh, okay. I got you. Well,
Yeah.
I normally what I like to do for everyone that I interview on this show is I ask you to name three things you love, and then we play Mary F. Kill with those three things. And I think I already know your answers based on the way you answered that, but I'm going to ask you, like, okay, here we go. These are your three favorite consoles. Which one dies? And which one do you throw in the fire and is destroyed for all time? And then which do you like but not enough to marry? And which one is the one that your true love, your soulmate?
Oh gosh. So yeah, my true soulmate would be the N64.
Right.
Um, I definitely would date or whatever, the step below that with the Wii U, and I would do a Sega with the Dreamcast and just kill it off.
Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna go the Sega route with the Dreamcast and just do what they did and just bury it.
I got to tell you, you're not the first person on this show to kill the Dreamcast. This is a theme we're starting, I guess. But I understand what you're saying though. But let me ask you this: so N64, what is it about the N64 that really does it for you? Sell me on sell me on the N64. Sell it to me. Give me your greatest pitch for somebody you're trying to make understand why you love that console the way you do.
Well, for me, let's take the memories aside, okay? Because like I said, that's a big part of why I loved it. A lot of the memories that I shared with my brothers. So take that aside. Um, my favorite games are platformers,
Right.
and I've always loved Mario games. So, games like Super Mario 64, Star Fox 64, absolutely fantastic, shooter game. I mean, it's an on-rail shooter, fantastic shooter. Love Star Fox 64. Mario Kart 64, an amazing racer. I think if you ask anyone their favorite racers of all times, outside of the Need for Speed series and stuff like that, I think Mario Kart will always be brought up.
Mm.
I think Mario Kart 64 will always be everyone's favorite. GoldenEye 64, another fantastic shooter. If you love shooters, fantastic first-person shooter. Um, Perfect Dark, another fantastic first-person shooter. As far as role-playing games, the Nintendo 64 did not have those. A lot of those, unfortunately. Um, So if you're a big fan of that genre, even back in the day, so many more hardcore fans migrated towards a PlayStation just because of Final Fantasy VII. I think that was the one
Mm.
game that really won so many people over in that genre. Uh, so for platformers, shooters, I think the Nintendo 64 had a lot of good shooters. There was good ports like Hexen.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Uh,
that is good on N64.
I think Doom 64 was good as well. Um,
What a unique version of Doom. It's like it's very different from anything else. Absolutely.
yeah. Just trying to think of some more.
Well,
I mean, any of the
let me
rare
ask you about
games.
that controller because I think there's a lot of people that I've talked to who have said they like the N64, they just don't like that controller. I personally really like using that controller because it works. It's designed specifically for those games, and I think those games only feel like when you try to play N64 through an emulator, if you're not using an N64 controller, it doesn't feel right to me. Like it, maybe it's just that I'm used to it on the N64. I don't know, but like, what are your thoughts? So, is it a good controller? Is it an abomination? Are you just like dealing with it? Like, what are your thoughts about that specific control?
See, that's one thing I hear so many people say with the N64 is that the controller is trash, that it's just complete garbage. And I've never felt that way.
Hmm.
I think the controller is amazing. Um, I think a lot of people's problems with it, even back then, was they did not know how to hold it.
Yeah,
You know, I've seen like memes and pictures of people holding the controllers even now, and they're like using their fingers on the joystick. Like two fingers to try to use a joystick and manipulate it around. It wasn't meant to do that way. I mean, it's just like any other analog stick today. To me, the controller was always meant to be held either your left hand on the middle section and your right hand on the right section.
yeah,
Uh, if there was games to where you wanted to use the D-pad on or needed to use the D-pad, your left hand would be on the left portion of the controller, right hand on the right side. I never understood people's confusion with how to use that controller, but oh my God, I've seen so many people holding that controller wrong.
yeah,
And as you said, the games were built for that controller. This
yeah.
is what Nintendo does. When Nintendo releases a new console, they build the games around that controller. Nintendo, to my knowledge, you can correct me if I'm wrong. They were the first ones to introduce the controller with the D-pad, like the NES controller. They introduced that.
Right.
Um, then they evolved that with the Super Nintendo controller. They added the two shoulder buttons, the two extra face buttons there. And with every console they've released like that in the games, they do it to utilize that controller, and they do it so well. With the Wii, the Wii U, the Switch, the N64, every game is designed around their controller. That's one thing Nintendo does very well.
I agree with you. In fact, for me, I think the N64 controller is a much better controller than a lot of people would say. And I have a whole lot more love for that controller than I do for, I'm sorry to say, the Joy-Cons. I'm not a big
Oh,
fan of the Joy-Cons. That's one
oh,
of, yeah, they kind of dropped the ball there.
yeah, yeah. The Joy Cons are absolute abomination. And that's one thing that really irks me with the Switch. I love the Switch, but my God, I've played some of the games like Skyward Sword, for example.
Hmm.
Play that, play that on the Wii. Have that on my Wii. Have it on the Switch, and the controls are absolute garbage on that game on Switch. Like the game looks amazing, but you're constantly having to recalibrate your controls because they get off centered, and
Yeah.
the motion controls just do not work there at all. Like it needed like that infrared like the Wii had, like something to focus on to refocus and recenter your controls there because they're just bad. I couldn't even imagine trying to play the new Metroid Prime remastered with with the motion controls.
I mean, I don't understand why they couldn't have just included another one of those sensors with the Switch. Like,
Yeah,
I don't get that. Like, what's the problem?
just make it built into your dock.
Yeah, build it into the dock, or, I mean, if you had to, just use put the port and use the exact same thing that the Wii had. They used it on the Wii U. You could use it again on the Switch.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The only thing I could think was they wanted to get away from that wire. That
Yeah,
wire is a humongous long wire.
that's true. It is crazily long, like absurdly long. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, yes, very long, very, very much.
Okay, well, that's cool. Well, like another thing that I wanted to talk to you about. I mean, I know that we both love video games, and we could talk about video games all day. You know, your name that you chose to use for your channel is Luke's Awakening, and the name that you go by is Luke. There's a sort of a combination of things going on there. It's video games and it's also Star Wars stuff. How big a fan of Star Wars are you? Like, what's up with that?
I love Star Wars. It's hands down my favorite movie series of all time.
Even
Episodes 1 through 6.
okay, I was about to say, or like what are we talking about, Luke? What are we talking about?
Yeah, 1 through the first Star Wars I ever saw was Empire Strikes Back. Like that was the first one, so I will always remember that. That will always be my favorite of the original trilogy. Just fantastic movie.
I think everybody, well, not everybody, some people like my buddy Eugene thinks Return of the Jedi is his favorite. He's wrong, but that's what he thinks. Like Empire Strikes Back is probably, I think, universally amongst fans thought of as the best movie for sure. What a great way to start your Star Wars experience, watching Empire first. So you went back and watched
Yep,
the first one after that.
I did. Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, I was probably maybe 10 or 11 before I even watched that movie for the first time.
Oh
But I
wow.
watched and loved it. I don't remember how many times I even watched it before watching just Star Wars. And back then, I don't even remember it being called like 4, 5, and 6. I just remember it was Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. I don't remember at what point they really brought in the numbers. If maybe they were back then, I don't know. We just didn't call them that.
They,
Um,
I don't know when they did that, when they went back and changed it. That's a good question. Where they added in like episode 4, 5, and all that. My brother would know that. Like he's probably when my brother listens to this, he's gonna be slapping his forehead and screaming at and people are gonna be like, what's happening? And he's like, I have to call my brother right now, and then I'll have to listen to an hour of my brother chewing my ass for not knowing this. But anyway, I mean, yeah, Empire Strikes Back. The thing is, I personally would say that's the best of any Star Wars ever, and it'll never get better than that. There are other good Star Wars things, movies, and now some good TV shows, thank God. But I don't think it'll ever get to that again. I just don't think it's possible. One of the reasons I think that is because Empire is the one where they surprised everybody, and people love to be surprised. And you just can't surprise people twice. It's like the Matrix, the first Matrix movie. Like, people will always love that movie because it surprised people. They didn't see it coming. And I think that's
oh, it's a
yeah, I'm just saying, I think that's
great.
the best thing you can do in a movie.
Yeah, I can't even imagine, as someone who watched the original in '77 and then watching that one in '80 when it first came out and
Yeah.
getting that shocker that Vader was his father. I can't even imagine.
I was
Um,
I was so little. Like, I remember seeing Empire Strikes Back in the theater because they had like at the mall that we saw it at, they had like a dude dressed up as Vader and somebody dressed up as Yoda, and we got pictures taken with them. And I had a Polaroid of me sitting on Darth Vader's lap, which was really cool. But I barely even remember seeing that movie in the theater. I remember seeing Return of the Jedi. Like, that was a big deal. And I remember seeing that and crying when the Ewoks got killed. And, and But it was cool. And when the Emperor pulled out the lightning, I remember how
Oh yeah,
I was like, oh my God, I never seen anything like that. It was fascinating.
yeah,
But yeah, Empire Strikes Back. Come on, it's got everything. It's got anything you could want in science fiction. It's all in there.
yeah. It's just so good. And in the Star Wars series, I mean, it's very divisive anymore. Because those of us who grew up with it, so many don't want to accept anything beyond the originals.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
What do you think about the new shows?
as far as the new shows, I mean, I really loved Obi-Wan. I thought it was
Mm.
fantastic. I love the prequel trilogy. I
Yeah.
know that's that's a big source of divisiveness right there too, but I always loved the prequel trilogy. I thought it was amazing. So getting to see Ewan McGregor come back and Hayden Christensen play Obi-Wan and Darth Vader, and you're getting to see more of their interaction and just their whole big. I don't want to spoil it for those who haven't watched it, but I'm going to. If you haven't watched it, you should have already watched it. Sorry
Yeah,
about your luck.
everyone pause the podcast right now, go watch Obi-Wan and then come back.
But their whole big battle was amazing. Like I was like, holy crap, this is amazing. Just the stuff they did in that was just everything that a fan of Star Wars and Darth Vader I feel would want to see. It was amazing. Um, I've really been digging The Mandalorian as well. But
Mm.
now one thing I told my wife last night, we've been watching through we're caught up on the newest season. One thing I told her, I feel like this season 3 doesn't really have much of a sense of direction. I don't know if you feel that way, but I'm kind of like, okay, their daily lives are just playing out, but what's the bigger point here? Like, what are we getting at?
Well,
Like, I don't really see.
I think it's important to say, like, this podcast is gonna be available a little bit later. It's gonna be a little while before this comes out. So we're in the middle, like the season's not over yet for us. So we're sort of evaluating season 3 as it's still going on. I think we've seen episode 5. Is that right? And we're,
Yeah, I believe
yeah.
so.
So yeah, I agree with you. I feel kind of like this season is kind of having a hard time establishing what, like it's not really focused. I feel like the action is, I don't know. It's just not gripping me as much. And I also kind of blame Andor for that because I really enjoyed that show and it was a lot more serious and a lot, I don't know, it was just a very different kind of show. And then coming back to Mandalorian, you can't help but sort of draw some comparisons with how things were done. I know not everybody's a big fan of Andor. I don't know what you think about it necessarily, because it is so different. It's not typical Star Wars stuff. It's much more adult.
That one, I've tried to make myself watch that one. I think I got to like episode 4, and I'm like, I can't do it. I couldn't get into it. I just
Yeah.
wasn't feeling the show.
It's a lot different. It's really not like a regular. It's more like I don't know. Like it's just different. It's darker and it's more like for grown-ups. I'm not saying that Star Wars isn't for grown-ups, but it's not your typical Star Wars.
Yeah.
But to be fair, like we haven't had typical Star Wars since the prequels. Anyway, Mandalorian's really not that typical for Star Wars either. It's got a definite like Western kind of vibe going.
Yeah, which I mean, that was George Lucas's original intention with Star Wars, was a space western.
Oh, that's a good point. That's actually a good point.
So
Yeah.
John Favreau is doing fantastic with the series as far as keeping it feeling like Star Wars. Like that's one thing I do applaud him for. I feel like it really does feel like Star Wars, like it's part of that universe.
It feels like Star Wars. It's just a little bit different. It's got its own flavor, It's definitely like Andor was it was Star Wars, but it was really like a separate kind of thing. But yeah, this season of Mandalorian, I'm not really sure what to make of it. I don't know how I feel about it. I was talking to my daughter about this the other day because we were trying to like feel each other out, kind of like, what do you think? What do you think? And I just basically told her what you just said. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how I feel. It's not really gripping me the same way. But, we don't know how it's going to end yet. So,
yeah, I just don't know where they're going with it. And I mean, honestly, let's just face it. It's going to be hard to top the first and second season. Them bringing in Luke and then seeing Ahsoka as well. I mean, it's going to be hard to top that. I don't really know what else they could do.
well, by the time someone listens to this podcast, that answer, that will be answered. and they might be like, geez, guys, you got like, well, we don't know what's going to happen, but like they will know because they will have seen it, and they'll be like, stuff. Oh my God, they don't even know. They don't even know what happens. Like when the Rancor comes out with the double lightsabers, Anyway.
It's all these time travelers listening to this.
They don't even know when Marty McFly shows up out of nowhere and saves everyone. Like what? I don't know.
Yeah, he rebuilt the DeLorean apparently and came back.
I have faith though, because it's been a good show, and I feel like it's gonna be okay. I feel like it's gonna end well, but we'll see. There's been a lot of what I would call kind of rudderless, like drifting, and I'll be very interested to see what happens. I do wonder though, do you think that the lightsaber popsicles will be key in the story?
I don't know. I hadn't really thought about that. That might be the thing that brings the season together, and is kind of the cherry on top.
A lightsaber cherry on top?
Cherry flavored lightsaber. It's red.
That's what the secret has always been about. The lightsabers were flavored. That's why they were the different colors. I got you. That actually makes sense, kind of, if you think about it.
Yeah. I was just thinking, we didn't even mention Boba Fett. I hadn't even thought about Boba Fett. I almost forget that series, to be honest.
I think a lot of people want to forget that series. Like, there was one good episode that had Mando in it.
That was the best one the whole season.
Look, I was so disappointed. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be overly critical, but like, I love Robert Rodriguez and I love Boba Fett, but that show was pretty lame. Like, it was weird. Like, they had strange decisions. I don't understand that show,
Yeah. Like you said, I love Boba Fett, love his character, love Robert Rodriguez, I love his movies.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that they brought back the guy that played Django as Boba Fett. I mean, Boba Fett was his clone. I love the fact that they brought that actor back. But it's sad when the best episode of your series is the one that pretty much is nothing but The Mandalorian.
Yeah. There was some good moments, like when he gets on the Rancor, or when what's that Cad Bane, when he shows up, that was cool, with the shootout and everything. There was some cool moments, but yeah, they made Boba kind of lame, like he wasn't like this badass, like when he got eaten by the damn pit of Sarlacc, I guess it really did a number on him. I know they had him in the back to tank healing like the whole damn show. So
yeah. And that's the thing to me. If you're going to continue on the story of a character like Boba Fett that is so beloved, you need to do something that really advances his story, that does something to add to it. And I don't feel like this series did anything to give me any more knowledge, or any knowledge that I even care to know.
I think that they could fix it if they work in Boba Fett some more into Mandalorian, which they might. I don't know. But yeah, I hate being this critical of Star Wars, because I know everybody on the internet loves to talk crap about Star Wars. That's like it's like the great pastime of the internet to just talk about Star Wars, and but
that and certain game consoles.
Oh, okay, yeah, certain other things we should say.
Yeah.
But yeah, but still, overall, like I said, I think there's still room to save. Let me put it to you like this: in the latest, I don't remember if it was the last episode of Mando or the one before, when Ahmed Best shows up at the end of that episode, and he saves Baby Yoda, right?
Yeah.
The internet lost its mind in a great way, you know, because
Oh yeah.
that guy deserves an apology from every Star Wars fan that was around when everything happened to that dude. You know, he was the first major, like, at least in my lifetime that I can remember, the first major, like, actor in a role that everybody just completely openly trashed and mocked. And I mean, the guy nearly killed himself. You know, he went through hell for years and years because he was constantly harassed by people. You know, the absolute, like, I don't even know, the entitlement and arrogance of my generation to do that to him. Yeah, I'm so glad that he would even want to come back to Star Wars, and I'm so glad he's being welcomed the way he is.
Yeah, I was really happy to see him in there and know that he got a second chance, at a redemption role. Let's just face it. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
redemption role for him and his character. I mean, not character, he's not playing the same character, but for him, I guess
Or
in
is
personal,
he? Or is he? No, anyway, sorry.
he could be one of those shapeshifters.
I think he's going to pull off that face. It's like a mask, and there he is. Oh, no. And we're like, I knew it.
But I never had a problem with Jar Jar Binks. I really didn't. I've never quite understood the hate that is there. I mean, I understood his character. I understood George Lucas's reasoning for bringing it in. You know, George was trying to appeal more to the family market. I mean, he has always made Star Wars, I feel personally, as a family film, a family series. So I get what he was doing with Jar Jar's character. Is he annoying? Yes, he's annoying at times. But I never really was like, oh my God, these movies are just complete trash because of Jar Jar. That's stupid. And so many people hate on those films because of that. And it's just dumb. I never understood that.
You know, George Lucas said that Jar Jar was his favorite character. Did you know that?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. He actually took it really, really personally whenever everybody trashed that character. Let me ask you a question.
Huh.
We all think Jar Jar is this benevolent, innocent character who just stumbles through things, and he's got a good heart, you know, but he just messes things up. Have you heard the theory about Jar Jar though?
But he's a Sith Lord.
What do you think? Is it possible?
No, he's too much of an idiot.
Or
I
he's
don't-
that convincing? Huh?
yeah.
Work with me
Yeah.
here. Like, everything was that happened. There's like a whole theory about this. Like everything that happened, Jar Jar was involved. He's like like 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. Like, they figured out how Jar Jar was somehow responsible for every horrible thing that happens in the trilogy. I don't know the specifics of it, but I think it's possible.
Yeah. I don't know. I know even, Darth Plagueis, we heard it referenced there. I don't know if you know much about his character or not, but my understanding is Darth Plagueis, who was Sidious, Palpatine's master, he's the one who actually used the midichlorians in the Force or used everything there to manipulate and create life, and he was the one who created Anakin. I don't know if you know that or not.
But who created Rey?
Oh God. J.J. Abrams.
J.J. Abrams created Rey poorly.
Yeah, even
Yeah.
even Plagueis couldn't manipulate things that bad to make Jar Jar be
Yeah,
that powerful. Yeah, I don't know.
But
Yeah,
unless Jar Jar was Plagueis, and
that's possible.
see, huh?
Maybe.
It's funny how people like we get so into our things that we're fans that we come up with all these ideas, and people like they'll like do all this mental gymnastics to try to make something. Oh, I think maybe this and this and this and this, and that's
Maybe.
why I think that's why people get so mad about Star Wars movies, because they have all these ideas that they have in their head, like they work up all these theories and stuff, and then the
Yeah.
next Star Wars comes out and it like doesn't fit what they imagined, and they get super pissed off. I think that's part of it anyway.
Well, I think 7, 8, 9 could have been good had J.J. Abrams made all three of them. I think he had a good direction with 7. I think he probably had a good direction where he wanted to go with 8, and then Ryan Johnson just came along and totally screwed the pooch there and just jacked that one up.
Have you
I
have
mean,
you
8 is.
have you seen those interviews with Mark Hamill where he tries to beat around the bush, not too subtly about all that?
I've seen some that saying that, and I've seen some where he was just like, this is not my Luke Skywalker, or
Yeah.
this is not how it's meant to be.
Yeah, he was
Yeah,
pissed,
I've
dude. He was really pissed. And
yeah,
he had every right to be pissed. I mean, J.J. Abrams had no respect. I mean, not J.J. Abrams, Ryan Johnson. He had like no respect for any of the characters. Like he,
no,
he
no,
literally,
yeah,
like the first scene, he has Luke throw away the lightsaber, and that sets the tone for everything you're about to see, And then you're like, oh, okay. Now, to an extent, let me say this. To an extent, I actually can appreciate going against expectation. Like giving us something different than what we think we're going to see. I can appreciate that to an extent,
yeah,
but only if there's a real like reason, like if you respect the material and the characters enough to actually just let stuff happen that should happen, and like not give in to like fan service because you're like, no, I think this is what should happen in the story because it makes sense. And if you did that, I'd be like, yeah, okay, I can get behind that and I appreciate that. But that's not what Ryan Johnson did. Like,
no. I think the better of any sequels, or we see a lot now of reboot slash remasters of movies, or not reboot slash remakes. I think the better ones you see of those are the ones who appreciate those legend characters, those original characters, actually show an appreciation for them and do those roles and those characters justice.
yeah,
We've seen this with, they brought back Jamie Lee Curtis for the Halloween series.
yeah. Oh, I love,
You know,
I
I
love her, dude.
yeah,
Let me
I think
let
when
me
you
ask
do,
you let me ask you a question. Like, I know she's a little bit older now, but what do you think?
oh, would I?
What I'm just saying, is
Would
she
I?
is she still is she aight?
Yeah, yes, yes,
Yeah, she's aight.
yeah. We won't talk about her son, daughter, or whatever, but Jamie's fine. Yes.
We were just talking about Jamie Lee Curtis the other day. Remember, we were
Yeah.
you watched A Fish Called Wanda. What did you think? You've never seen it before. What did you think?
I've never seen it. It was definitely different from anything I expected. Um, I watched that on your recommendation. You mentioned it, and I immediately found it and started watching it and watched it while at work. uh, but I really enjoyed it. It's one I definitely would go back and rewatch. There's kind of like you and I were talking with Jamie Lee Curtis. There's not a lot of roles that really come to mind with her, but yet she's so big in Hollywood.
Yeah.
But outside of that movie, I mean, all I could tell you was Halloween and True Lies.
Oh my God,
That was
True
it.
Lies, so good. She
Yeah,
did
it's a fantastic,
Trading Places also with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd. I don't know if you remember.
fantastic movie.
Yes, that's actually a really good movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one in a long time. So many of these movies like that I watched as a kid, like when they would come on TBS and stuff, and like Blues Brothers is another one that comes to mind.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's like when I got older and watched them on DVD and stuff, I was like, holy crap, I didn't know it said all this stuff. I didn't know this was in there.
The Blues Brothers, that Aretha Franklin has a great number in that she, you go back and you watch that now and it's like, oh my God, what a great movie.
Ray Charles.
Ray Charles. Oh my God. We didn't even know. Like, it sucks when you don't know what you have until it's gone and you're like, oh man, it was such a great time. And thank God we were alive to be able to appreciate certain, things when they were in their heyday,
Yeah.
Another thing.
It's,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, yeah, it's just funny though, like I said, I watched a lot of that stuff growing up, it would be on TV and stuff. And even back then, I remember early on, a lot of the curse words, they were actually beeped out. And then eventually they got to where they were like doing voiceovers that were horrible. You remember like
Yeah.
the terrible voiceovers
Oh
where
my
they changed
God.
lines, and you could
Yes.
tell it wasn't the original actor. It's
I
really
gotta,
bad.
I gotta tell you something. You're talking about, like, how like sometimes when they do the TV version of a movie, they would change what the actor says. They had them read other lines, and then they
Yeah.
would replace it. So I watched. You remember the movie A Few Good Men with Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise and Kevin
Fantastic
Bacon?
movie.
Yes, great movie. There's a scene at the end of that movie where Tom Cruise tricks Jack into like saying whatever, and so Jack flips out and he like tries to like lunge at Tom Cruise. And in the movie, like in the theatrical version of that movie, he says, I'm gonna rip out your eyes and piss in your dead skull, you effed with the wrong Marine, right? Okay. But on TV, this is what they did. They thought this was the best way to replace that and make it not as bad. So tell me if you think this is better. Instead of saying that, he says, I'm going to rip out your eyes and puke in your dead skull. That's what they replaced it with. Me and my brother, we heard this and it has stuck with us forever. Every once in a while we bring this up because it's like, you thought that was better? Like, what? They actually had him record they had him record saying he would puke in the dude's skull, and you're like, yeah, that'll work. That'll pass the families. They won't mind. You're like, what? Usually it was like really innocuous. Like you would see Bruce Willis from Die Hard, and in saying yippee-ki-yay, mother effer, he'd say yippee-ki-yay, mister, or something, it would be something goofy, and you'd be like, okay, whatever. But that one just struck me because I was like, I cannot believe this even happened. Like, why? I don't know. Strange.
I'll tell you the biggest shocker for me like that though was Full Metal Jacket.
Oh, okay. What was that?
Just you've seen that one, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I mean, just that whole scene, with our oh my gosh.
I can't even
Just
imagine
seeing
how
that-
you would do it on TV. Like,
yeah, just seeing that on TV was so edited. And then, when I actually watched that on DVD, I was like, oh my God.
I can't even imagine how you would do it because everything that comes out of his mouth is the most horrific shit you've ever heard.
Yeah, it was I'd say a lot of muting out, a lot of stuff that was changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember watching. Oh my God, I didn't know all that was said.
Wow. What a great movie,
Anyways,
though.
It's funny though, like I said, with watching stuff like that on TV. I remember so many movies that I watched as a little kid that I didn't know what was going on and what it meant. Like Bill and Ted. I remember as a kid going around saying 69, dude, and I didn't know what.
Yep. Oh my God.
The whole scene in Ghostbusters with Dan Aykroyd and where his belt comes open. I didn't know what was going on, kid.
You're like, wow, that's weird. Well, I got to ask you, we've been talking about games. We've been talking about movies. I gotta bring this up. So one thing that both you and I enjoy, because we're both old dudes who grew up in, the 80s and everything, Uh,
Well, you are.
well, shut up. What I'm getting at is we both have an appreciation for older toys, like older things, because in that time period, they just made awesome toys back in the day. You could still find some good toys, although I think the toy market is not what it used to be. It's, they're having a hard time selling toys these days. But when we first got to really talking, you picked up on the fact that I really like GI Joes and Transformers and stuff like that, and you told me about something that was really cool. And this may sound really goofy, like trying to tell people about this, but there's these toys that normally these things are kind of expensive, but you told me about a way I could get some really cool like GI Joe figures that weren't actually like GI Joes, but they were basically GI Joes, just not in name, for super cheap. And I was like, yeah, right. I didn't even know if I believed what you were saying, but you were like, no, it's for real. And you sent me some links, and damn it, dude, you had me out buying toys, and I hadn't. I was like, what? I went to the Family Dollar, and I picked up these GI Joes, these Family Dollar version of GI Joes, vehicles, tanks, like trucks, like all kinds of stuff, and it was like ridiculously cheap. Like I bought like a big ass tank, and it came with like 3 characters, and it was like $20. And the characters that you would buy were like $3 or $4 a piece. I felt like I was I felt like it was the old days, And you had some other ones that you found that were even cheaper than that. I think they were like $1 or something like that.
Yeah. Whole product line. I didn't know anything about it. A friend was telling me about it. They have them at Dollar Tree, and they sell some at Family Dollar as well. Their Final Faction.
Okay.
So the insane thing is these figures are amazing. They're
Yes.
highly detailed. They come with so many different accessories. And at the time they were $1, and now they're $1.25 a piece. But there's actually like vehicles for them that are as $1.25 as well. There's a whole line of good guys. There's bad guys that look like aliens and that sort of thing. But not only does Dollar Tree have that, they have a cartoon series on YouTube around this series. There's also a comic book series based on this, and this is all coming from Dollar General and Family Dollar. It's insane, and they're so great. It's such a great series of figures. Cartoon animation is a little cheesy. It's kind of that very early looking CG, kind of like I guess like Beast Wars, really early CG, animation. But it's still cool if you collect the figures to watch that. And the comics are really good as well, though.
By the way, this is not an ad. We are not paid. This is not a sponsored like advertisement. I just wanted to bring this up because I think you know what, and you might be mad at me, Luke, for letting people know about this because there'll be less opportunities for us to buy cool stuff if people go buy it. But I just felt like if there's collectors out there or people just that like toys, that like to play around with them or whatever, or they want to get like their kids some GI Joe type stuff, or like you said, some other things, there's cheap options out there that are actually way better than you might think. So I thought it was really cool, and I would never have known about it if it wasn't for you and the conversations we had. So I definitely appreciate that. I mean, I got like a helicopter, like an attack chopper, and like a boat, like a speedboat, like a big, like a huge ass, like a watchtower with like a big machine gun on the top. I got a bunch of cool stuff, and I paid like very little. So
the funny thing was, like when we were growing up, I wouldn't have looked at anything like that because honestly, back then, that stuff was just complete cheap garbage. Like anything that you would have seen at dollar.
It was horrible.
It was awful. I would have never even looked at it. But now it's like it's the quality, if not better quality, than some of your name brand toys.
Yeah, exactly. See, back in those days, they did have generic GI Joes and stuff, but they were absolute shit. Like the quality was just it was horrendous. Like it was embarrassing to even look at them. You know what I mean? Like I felt bad for the people making them because I'm like, oh man, you have to tell people this is what you do. Like it was terrible. But these are just these are the same quality as the GI Joes we used to have, for sure. You know.
And I want to say that, although I'm not sponsored, if Dollar Tree would like to sponsor me, my channel is Awakening. So you can hit me up there. I'm on Twitter as well, so you can DM me, and I will be glad if you want to sponsor me.
All right.
But
Yeah.
no, just kidding. Oh, just kidding. But for real though, it is a fantastic series. And you mentioned how like the toy market seems to be struggling now. I think the biggest problem is back in the 80s, they always had a toy line to go with a series, a cartoon series.
Right.
That was what really drove those toy sales, was having that cartoon series as well at the same time. I mean, think about it with G.I. Joe, with He-Man, Transformers, even you get into the girls' toys, My Little Pony, Care Bears, Smurfs.
Jim is truly outrageous.
She is.
But the Misfits are better, and they're gonna get her.
I watched that one as a little boy too. I did. I watched
Everybody.
that one.
Come on, you did.
Yeah. I mean, how could you not watch? She-Ra went so hand in hand with He-Man, so that was one that if you watched He-Man, you had to watch.
Oh yeah, she was. Let me ask you this: She-Ra, Teela, Evil Lynn, Mary F. Kill. Which one? Let's do it again. Mary F. Kill.
I'm gonna say F. Evil Lynn.
Oh yeah.
I think she'd be wild.
That yellow skin.
She's got a little bit of evil in her. Maybe a lot of evil. Yeah. I would marry She-Ra.
Yeah.
And
you're gonna kill Teela? Oh, that sucks. But I mean, what are you gonna do? It's She-Ra. What are you gonna do? I mean, it is what it is. Sorry, Teela.
It's hard to pass up a blonde, right?
I'm just saying, She-Ra's, yeah. Okay, Luke. I want to thank you so much for agreeing to come on the show, and I want to thank you so much just for being my friend and for introducing me to such cool stuff. We haven't known each other forever, but in the time that I've known you, it's felt like I've known you forever. And I do consider you, one of my best friends. And we haven't ever met in person, but I feel like I know you very well. And I feel like we always have these weird things that come up that we have in common that we don't realize. And that's how you know somebody, that's one of the signs that somebody's like, you're on the same page. You're good friends, because just stuff will happen all the time. And it'll be like, oh, that's a coincidence. That's a coincidence. That sort of thing. My
wife was talking about that earlier today. I was like, it's crazy, but I really do appreciate you having me on here, and I appreciate the friendship that we have. I appreciate the fact that you ever started talking to me in the beginning, and gave me the opportunity, and we got to know each other. It's like I said, I like you said, I consider you one of my best friends as well, and it means a lot having you as a friend.
Well, I'm just glad for these types of things. I'm glad that that life has led us in good directions. I'm grateful for that. And speaking of going in directions, how do people find you? Like, what is your channel called? Tell people about what you're doing one more time.
Well, my channel is called Luke's Awakening. I'm also on Twitter. Typically on Twitter, I just kind of tweet out just when my videos go live and that sort of thing. But yeah, so right now I'm doing do modern and retro gaming. I've actually yesterday started doing just little Transformer shorts, just showing off some of my action figures I have, some of my Transformers figures. So if anyone's big into Transformers, they might enjoy that. Just eventually I'll work through my collection, so that would be pretty cool to show that off.
Definitely.
But yeah, doing Nintendo, Sega, PlayStation occasionally and Xbox, just whatever I think people would really be interested in. I like picking and choosing games that I think are unique and that really mean something to me. So that's what I like to try to share with others.
I can't wait to see more of your videos and, you know, where the future leads you and your channel. So guys, go check out Luke's Awakening, subscribe to his channel. It's really great entertainment for you, for the family. It's just really cool stuff. He's got videos, really showing off a lot of things you might have never heard of, but you will be so grateful because like I am, Luke is always showing me things that I, you know, wouldn't have found on my own, just really cool stuff. And I think that Luke's Awakening is basically that. It's an awakening for all of us that participate and hang out and get to know him. So Luke, thank you so much. Anything you want to wrap up with before we go?
No, this has been a fantastic time. I really appreciate you having me on. It's been great. Thank you so much.
No problem, dude. I'm so glad to know you and to call you my friend. And everybody else, thanks for hanging out with us, and I will see you on the next one. Take care. Oh wait, I almost now I screwed it up.
Yep, I was waiting for it.
Here we go. Hang on. All right. Until next time, I'm Cyrus.
And I'm Luke.
And we'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for checking out Retro Rambling, an audio podcast discussion about all things retro. If you enjoyed it, then check back soon for more. See you next time.